Two men in black hats went down to kill rats in a pub owned by Lady Pitarte. A few were soon dead, and together they said they were off to a pretty good start. But Pitarte had a cellar, and one went to tell her she'd be sorry if they couldn't procure permission to descend, and thus better to end her troubles with rats, they were sure. And so they were granted permission and planted their poison and traps down below. And they waited a day before they could say they were finished and thusly could go. So the next day they returned and were startled to learn not a vermin or varmint was found. The traps were all tripped, the poison not sipped, but small prints were all over the ground. So the men in black hats improved on their traps and created a better device that would catch and not kill without poison or pill all the rats, and quite likely the mice. So they put it in place and waited with grace for the bell that would signal the deed had accomplished its task, so finally, at last, they could get paid, as Pitarte had agreed. And so the bell rang, and with vigor they sprang to gaze at their needed success. But all that they found, lying there on the ground, was an image that was grim and grotesque. For there in a bag, and small ropes and a gag, in their contraption that was fully intact, were the tattered remains of Miss Kitty McLean, Lady Pitarte's long overdue cat. Well, with unwavering zeal, they made an appeal to Pitarte to just allow them the chance to flood the old cellar, and proceeded to tell her they'd like to get paid in advance. But she said, "You may not, and what's more, you have got to comply with the contract agreed. You shan't see a dime until such a time as the two of you fully succeed." So the law had been laid, and never dismayed, they threw themselves into the task. One loaded a gun, and the other had run to get a deadlier poison and masks. Armed to the teeth, they ventured beneath the pub to the shadows below. And they each said a prayer and felt a bit scared, not knowing quite how it would go. They descended the steps to the cellar and crept to the brick and the mortar below, where casks of fine brew and a lantern or two were cast in a flickering glow. They stood back to back when a thunderous crack rattled in the darkness and gloom. They adjusted their eyes and suddenly spied 1,000 some rats in the room. Well, above in the pub, the bar was the hub of an evening of joy and good cheer, for Lady Pitarte had mastered the art of serving guests wine and beer. No one understood the beer was so good that some of the clamor and cries that were so very loud were not from the crowd, but from men who now fought for their lives. Well, when things settled down and the people from town had tottered off back to their beds, Pitarte began clearing the glasses, not hearing a sound from the men before bed. And so then at dawn, Pitarte had been gone to shop for an evening affair, and when she returned, she was calm when she learned the men in black hats were not there. She descended the steps to the cellar and swept up the clutter she found on the floor. There was a dead rat or two, a gun, and a shoe, and 2 hats that she found by the door. And after some time she thought things were fine, for the cellar was tidy and clean, and she added 2 to her stack in her closet of hats, red, yellow, magenta, and green. 2 men in white hats went down to kill rats in a pub owned by Lady Pitarte. A few were soon dead, and together they said they were off to a pretty good start.